Well, joining us now is Mozambican journalist and social activist Clemente Carlos. Good afternoon, Clemente. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, the media space is littered currently with articles reporting on the volatile situation in the country. How is the situation this afternoon?
Hi, Mpondo. Greetings to your viewers as well. Well, unfortunately, the situation is not as good because we couldn't even imagine how bad the terrible V8 would have been because, that's how these strikes have been named. As you all know, there are different phases of these strikes, and the previous one was obviously 4x4, which was a reference to a very potent car, a vehicle that could drive all-terrain. And now, to actually escalate to a bigger level, Venâncio Mondlane, the one who actually called for these strikes, if I may call them that way, he mentioned this level here, Turbo V8, which would have been a much more potent car that would drive more efficiently in non-paved roads. And what's happening now is that nobody could actually tell how bad this would have been. Now we have policemen who have been killed. There are a number of civilians who have been killed. Many shopping centers have been looted. They've been burnt down. Both government and public buildings have been also burnt down. I'm talking about municipality infrastructure. I'm talking about public schools. I'm talking about private businesses. And a whole lot of people have been shot by police who are now filling up the hospitals to the overload level. So the situation is actually very bad here in Maputo. There is no safety at all. Yeah.
Is it widespread, or there are specific areas within Mozambique that are hardest hit by the destruction and the protests?
It's actually widespread, in front of it. It's widespread. It's all over the country. I'm talking from a Maputo perspective because that's where I am. But I'm getting videos from Nampula, which is the further north part of Mozambique. There are videos from Chimoio, which is in the center of the country. There are videos from Gaza, which is also in the southern part, but a different province to Maputo. Videos from Inhambane. So this is widespread all over the country, all over Mozambique, where these strikes are taking place. And allow me to tell you also that Venâncio Mondlane himself, the one who actually called for the strikes, has now come out this afternoon, and he said, we asked the population not to loot, not to burn public or private buildings, because we are going to need them either by Frelimo government or the opposition. These buildings are going to be needed. But unfortunately, most of the young people who were born, post independence in Mozambique, they do not really understand where Mozambique is coming from. We didn't have obviously I wasn't born by then, but in 1975, with the Portuguese being expelled from the country, that was one big fight our ancestors had over here. And now we also had the Civil War, which lasted for 16 years, which ended in 92 basically, which then led the way to the first multi-party elections in 1994. So these young people who were born post that time, they have no clue whatsoever or what a war looks like. And they're ready for anything that comes. So much so that they don't even listen to Venâncio Mondlane himself. They're like, no, you called for the strike. Now let it be in our hands, upon our hands. And we are the ones who should decide as to how this strike should go. That's how bad the situation is.
Clemente, you keep mentioning the youth. So are you saying the demographic that essentially has taken to the streets are the young, not necessarily maybe also even the older generation?
The elderly in Fondo have been taught to actually believe in Frelimo. Our parents, our grandparents, they've been taught to believe in Frelimo. So much so that, it has taken 50 years for a wide demonstration like this to take place. Yes, there have been a number of strikes some years ago. People have taken to the streets before, but it has never escalated to this level. It would have been maybe 12 hours of striking, 4 hours of striking, or even an hour long. But now we're on our third month of striking. This is something unprecedented, and we have never witnessed something like this. So, of course, it is the youth. When you go out into the streets, you'll find people, most of the people striking, they are 17, 15 years old, 22, but not older than 35. So it's basically the youth who are out in the streets. And also, when you look at the demographics, Mozambican is made up of young people more than the elderly, if I can say.
So they intend to protest until what exactly? What is the demand at this point? Do they want perhaps the Constitutional Council to reverse that declaration confirming Daniel Chapo as the winner, or are they calling for reforms just across the board? Electoral reforms, as we've heard, is what Venâncio Mondlane is calling for.
Let me be honest with you. Now I'm going to speak from, I was first giving you a journalistic report of the situation on the scene, on the ground. But now let me speak from an activist, a social and political activist point of view. This is not just about the election. This is about service delivery. Unfortunately, the people in power in Mozambique for these 50 years, these Frelimo people, they've been eating the money of the people, the money that belongs to the masses. And they've been sending their children overseas. All the children are studying in the UK, in the US. All the children are studying abroad, and they're living lavish lifestyles. They're buying houses in Europe. They're buying houses in Dubai. I mean, they're living like queens and kings here, while most of the population are living under the poverty line. I mean, if you come to Maputo, for example, which is our biggest city, it's the only developed province or city, to put it that way. But if you leave Maputo and you go elsewhere, it's just, underdeveloped. It's underdeveloped, and it's not even built up. So this is what is causing about this revolt. It's not really about the election. The election is being used as an scapegoat to actually unleash the anger people have been keeping for these 50 years. I mean, there are young people here who have never even eaten a decent meal. That's how bad the situation is. There are young people here who do not even have decent clothing. They do not have a decent education, because those who should be working to provide good education, they're just working for themselves and their families. Those who should be working to provide housing, they're just working for themselves and their families, buying houses, as I was explaining, overseas. And this is what is brought about this generalized anger and revolt. It's not just about the electoral truth, as we call here. We call it verdade eleitoral in Portuguese. It's not just about the electoral truth. It's also about service delivery. It's about, young people coming out and demanding their rights, because they do know that all these resources, mineral resources, the riches Mozambique possesses, belongs to the masses. But unfortunately, it's just a small group who's benefiting from it.
Okay, so the electoral outcome has essentially been that catalyst to deal with the long-standing social issues in the country. Thank you very much, Clemente, for that report. That was Clemente Carlos, Mozambican journalist and social activist, just giving us the very latest from Mozambique this afternoon.